Sounds like something.
Yeah, it's just a before.
It sounds like it's coming alive.
So where is it live? Where does someone watch it live?
Facebook, she said.
Where on what on Facebook?
You have to go into Rabbi Nick's page, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is it public or?
Yeah, it should be public.
Hmm?
Okay. I hope this is working.
But you keep going upside down.
And
You're
now?
upside down.
No, hold on. See if it flips. Hold on. There's a lag. If it doesn't flip, we'll give it a second.
You let this in and have a charger.
Does it didn't flip?
No, but I still like have the hourglass.
And now? Oh, you still have an hourglass. That's one. Hold on. Give it a second. It should flip. Okay. So this second example of the waters being sweetened by a bitter, the bitterness being sweetened by bitterness, Chazal say, the sages say about this, that this is how Hashem heals. So really, the thing we've been looking for all these years, I think, is the definition that sweetening is Hashem healing, is divine healing. That's really what it means. Is it better now?
I'm still have an hourglass. It's not even.
I'm like connecting like negative with negative becomes a positive. Like it's almost
So
it's not that
there is
intense.
something like that. This was, by the way, when in modern times, this was adopted by homeopathy. This principle. Our medicine is called allopathy, and allopathy is always fighting water with fire and fire with water. It's taking the opposite and using it to heal. But it says that that's human healing. That's how a human being thinks. The human beings think that what you do is you take the opposite and you use it to... But a lot of medicine, still, even now, is based on the concept of like a healing leg. For instance, a simple example that's brought in the Gemara by Shmuel is that when you have a fever, what do?
Burn it out.
So not just burn it out, but you drink hot liquids. What's the idea? The idea is the liquid is a lot hotter than your fever. It's simple that it is. Because you're like, what are you, maybe 40 degrees. But what you're drinking could be at 45, right? 45 degrees is Yad Soleh that you can drink it already. So it's hotter. And that actually is like what cancels out the fever. That's a simple example of it. In homeopathy, they took it a lot further, and based on a lot of their, we call it dimyonot, imagination. It's not necessarily that it's true. But the principle of like heals like, that's a principle from the Gemara. It's a principle from Chazal. And in the Medrash specifically, it's described as the way that Hashem heals. Still upside down?
Of the body
Let's see if it flips.
of adaptation.
What?
They're using adaptation to heal. Even in the normal, like if someone's got very bad knees, they're making them do massive weights, and the knees are so desperate that they're forming cartilage and stuff. Because it's the whole idea of adaptation.
Okay, it's good.
Okay. Now it's good?
And that's basically what exercise is. Like driving the muscles so crazy that they break down so much that they have to rebuild.
So is that healing?
We're giving an example.
It's an example of the opposite.
No, but if that's what you're saying. It's not.
That in order to strengthen, I do the opposite. I tear it.
No, you're even putting more pressure on. You're giving it more of the same.
I understand.
Isn't that what you're saying? Like heals like?
No, so here, like heals like, again, is the idea that I have to take the same quality that until now has been negative, and it itself, if used in the right way, becomes what heals itself.
So this is the same thing. There's pressure on the knees, and they're putting even more pressure on.
No, but we're saying the knee was weak.
It seems like that's what Hashem uses on
It's to take the weakness
and use it as a strength.
and use it as
So
strength.
that's the same thing. And that's
No,
what
that's
Hashem
just
does.
strength.
It's like he drives us
If
so
you see it,
crazy that eventually you turn to him.
So if you see it, then fine. I don't. It's just that I don't see it right now with the knees. But so maybe I need to think about it some more. So this is how it is with everything. We said this many times that you can only come to real healing through the divine soul. That's why you need separation first, because separation is what connects you with your higher self. Separation again means that I separate from my lower self and I connect with my higher. And so then at that stage, when I begin to think about what I went through, my higher self has a different interpretation. It can hear a different interpretation. There's no real, you could imagine that if you weren't, let's give the political example because it'll be very clear. And the political example is the clearest. There are those people that understand that separation between the Jewish people and the nations of the world is entitlement, it's that we're better, all these different things. And then they take the separation as being something like na 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 na, like in your face.
Which is often true.
Which is also true, but it's the lower way of understanding separation. Like when I do it in myself, it becomes very clear what the problem is. If I treat my animal soul as, oh, now I'm high and mighty because I now serve Hashem and I'm entirely a divine person.
Which is 95% at least of all Jews.
No, I don't know. I don't know how what the numbers are, but in myself I see that if I approach my animal soul out of a sense of superiority, in the sense of mocking it, good, then I haven't really done separation in the best possible way. The best possible way is just to understand that hitatzmut means that I become one with my higher self because it's higher, not because I'm trying to mock something else.
It's not stepping on something.
I'm not. I don't. If I need to separate by belittling something else, that's not real separation yet. Real separation is that by definition I have something else here. It's by definition something. I don't need to step on something to reach that level. I can reach that level within myself without ever treading or trotting on my animal soul. In the same way as how I treat non-Jews. I don't have to be superior thanks to mocking them or belittling them. No. I'm different because I'm different. Because Hashem made me different, that's all. There's this type and there's this type. For me to really, we said separation is identification. It's changing what I identify with. If I truly identify with my divine self, it doesn't come at the expense of anything else.
So you don't even loathe the addiction after?
No,
Just
I have no hatred of it. I ignore it. Because I'm not working with that right now. And if it comes for a visit, so fine, it came for a visit, now it's gone again. We said that there's no feeling of hatred here. There's no ill will towards what it was. These negative traits. They do come from time to time. And say, why did they come? They came to give me lowliness again, that's all.
Well, they just don't, they come and they just stay.
If they stay, so I have to rework my achna again.
So what your feeling is towards them, if they just don't ever go away. You know, that's you.
In separation, they're not me. Okay, if I'm still stuck in a place where I don't have any other identity but my lower identity, so I have to work again on separation from the beginning, what it means. And said that separation, identifying with something else, requires me to invest time in something else. It doesn't just come because somebody told me that I have a divine soul. It was very nice that the Tanya tells me I have a divine soul. That's in chapter 2.
You can switch.
But what have you done for me lately, he says, from chapter 3 to chapter 53. Which is, okay, so let's work on it. You have a divine soul, that's very nice. What do you want to do with it? Asher Oved Elokim. You have to constantly be serving Hashem with your divine soul for you to become identified with it. That's the main objective. And if you're still stuck, not that you'll never sin again. Of course you will. Hopefully you won't.
I was going to say.
It's pretty given that you will. So what? You don't identify with it anymore. The feeling is of, I wish this was not me. I wish I could identify completely with my higher self. If a goy comes and if an Andrew comes and he interacts with me in a bad manner, so what is he reminding me? That I'm also an Andrew inside. A goy asher b'kirbecha, I also have an Andrew inside. So what is Hashem telling me? So have achna, be lowly. Where did you get the superiority complex from?
We don't need an Andrew.
We do. It's called the goy asher b'kirbecha. That's our animal soul. Every animal soul is like
Or
a
if the
goy.
Jew is acting in a manner.
So anyway, that's the easiest way to see the difference between the two ways of doing separation. And if separation is done the right way, where I truly identify with my higher self, then when I come to this situation with, it's still upside down. It's got to be upside down. I just figured it out. It's only showing me, but it's not how it records. Am I right? It's probably
Yeah,
upside
you're
down.
upside down.
Yeah.
No, you're not upside down.
I'm not?
Oh, now you are.
Now you have to go upside down.
It is upside down, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Jim is that complicated.
It's like technology just makes you crazy.
Well, we'll make it work.
I work with it now.
So hopefully people are watching on
I was
a,
watching.
Like loaded, like
I
just
watched
leave
for a
it.
second.
for a second.
And you were on this, you were off. And your Lucy told you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I got. Now it's upside down.
I just quickly looked at it like, whoa.
People will just turn their devices upside down.
If it's a small device.
These days,
If it's
upside
a-
down.
Okay, anyway.
Just use these. This is the best.
Then you can't watch them at all times.
Yeah, but that's why come.
They're going to listen. It doesn't.
So wait, what happened with
Being
self?
Don't have a
You
smart
still-
when it comes to the class. There you go.
So now, this is how Hashem heals. He does like with like. But it's not that simple yet. Because we said that the whole secret here is that you have to go up a level. That to really heal something, you have to go up a level. It's not changing the context really means, it translates into going up a level. Who's what?
You're still ugly.
That I can't help.
That's to do the But it is still upside down.
Yeah, now I'm definitely upside down.
You only mean clearly.
So I'll read more
You can
about
take it
it.
from a good friend.
I'll read more about it for next time, so for tomorrow. It'll be even better.
So the going up a level in homeopathy is the dilution of the
Yes.
That's right. Technology.
So that's what they think. That's nice.
It works.
How does it work? So to understand this fully, we have to get into this. Is not first of all, this is not the only time we saw sweetening in the Tanakh. There's a few other examples. The most important example that people know in the whole Tanakh. Now we have to go to the whole Tanakh. So the most important example that people know is with Elisha. He went to Yericho, and they had a wellspring there in the middle of the city, and they couldn't drink from it. The waters were bitter. So what did he do? So he didn't throw a stick in, a bitter. What did he throw in? Anybody remember? He threw a metal rod. He took a metal rod and threw it in. But this is Elisha. He's a special character who can bring people back to life, even in his death, as opposed to Eliyahu, who could only do it when he was alive. The story is that somebody was buried with him, and then he was revivified. But in any case,
But the other person.
the other person, after he passed away. No, Hashem gave him that ability. He did it once in his life and once in his death. He didn't do it. It happened just because the person was with him. He touched him. With Eliyahu just did it once. There's a lot of interesting things
That's
about
funny because I know he didn't die, so you think would be, and we don't say you shouldn't
yeah,
die.
but in this world, the way he was, she did it just once.
Because
Then
the
again,
rod, because the metal is.
but now what happened is
Was it iron?
in Melachim it's described that after he threw it in, it floated up on top of the water. So here we already get a sense that this is not the usual metal rod that we're aware of. Something else is going on. And it's floating up says that it's actually higher than the water. And it's like oil. Like we said, that oil is higher than water. So as much as metal is lower than water usually, you would think at least that metal would be lower.
Why?
Does it sink?
Oh no, because water is life. Like, metal is just death. Like you can't bring it to the Mizbeach. It's a lower form. That's how right away I would have thought. But still, the fact that it floated up. What?
It's not a moving energy.
This was with the woman?
On the other hand, it conducts electricity. Water doesn't so much. Anyway, so let's discount Elisha for a moment. But it's there. He did something very similar. And what I want to argue, just from the small description there, is that it floated, is to say that he did put something higher in the water, higher than themselves. But that gives us a hint at what's going on here with Moshe Rabbeinu. When he throws the branch into the water, what is he doing? How is he elevating them?
Well, the air was like
The water is inanimate, and the branch is tzomeach, it's vegetable. Right? There's 4 levels: domem, tzomeach, chaim, and dabil. So you have to put in a bitterness that is not from the inanimate. Okay, that's the key. The key is you have to go a level higher.
And the rod.
But
So that's what I said about the rod. That it's like the rod here is like an oil. It's some kind of essence that's higher than water.
Maybe there was something in it.
Yeah.
They're both inanimate, so at first I don't see the difference. But here the fact that it floated up, which metal doesn't do. What?
Maybe he did it for the people to see something, did something to the people.
It was
In
a
any case,
special rod.
no, this is because of Elisha himself. That's what I'm trying to say. That Elisha changed the quality somehow. I don't know. But then there's the most important example of this, of replacing something with something higher than itself. This is really the essence of therapy. I can't say this any stronger than what I'm saying now. What is therapy? That there was something negative that happened, and I have to put it in a different context. For Freud, it meant that something happened to me when I wasn't able to process it, and therefore it fell down into my subconscious, and that's where it's affecting me without me even knowing about it, and therefore to sweeten it, I have to bring it to my consciousness. the moment that I'll be able to say it, relive the situation, but this time from a conscious place, a place of strength, a place of being able to process what happened, that itself will change the whole meaning. So it's always, that's the idea, that I take something from where it was and I transfer it to a higher place.
Does it have to be higher, or is
It has to be
different?
higher. It has to be higher. Everybody agrees it has to be in a higher
You always
place.
have to bring it, the negative to consciousness. Then.
In Freud, that's all it is. But
Do
we're
we have to
saying
do
that
that
it's much
first?
more than that.
But do we have to do at least that?
It's always taking it to a higher
What
level.
if you can't remember it?
What?
What if you can't remember
That's
the past at all?
that's exactly that's for Freud. That was the crux of the difficulty. How do you get the person to recall what he's really hiding from
So please can
himself?
tell me that we can skip that part.
What?
Can we skip that part?
What do you mean?
Remembering all the.
Okay, I don't think you need to,
Horrors.
So how do we do it?
because we can look at just the conscious effects.
So we
I
can
don't
see
have
the
to-
reality the way it is now.
Okay, I don't have to, because again, what happened is not what's important to me in and of itself. It's the effects. That
How
if
I
whatever it
react to
is, do I have to remember that we did this and this to Yosef and so on because of that? We're in Egypt and maybe yes, maybe no. But the main thing is that now that I'm here, again, it's like the Baal Shem Tov. Do I have to remember all my past lives to be able to figure out what I need to do here? No, I don't need. Whatever I'm faced with here is what I need to elevate.
Even bad qualities.
Especially the bad qualities. What do you mean, even? That's what we're working on.
No, but sometimes you just talk about circumstances. You can say the circumstances we're in. are
Circumstances are also the same thing as bad qualities. What's the
Okay.
difference? Whether it's in me, it's around me. It doesn't say I'm suffering from it the same way. Maybe circumstances, I think I can run away, but I can't really. They'll come with me.
And there's a reason it's there.
Okay, because if this is what I need to fix.
You're saying there's no start and finish. It's like an
Okay.
end. It's like
It's not so important where it came from. That's not the issue, says the Baal Shem Tov. It's not.
So do you think
That's
you
not-
don't have to even acknowledge it came from somewhere, or it's just...
You have to acknowledge it came from God. That's all. I don't. The
You
whole
can start in
question
the
about how
middle.
it happened.
So we can.
It's
we can
not
almost
relevant.
blame God.
What am I going to do with it from this
Yeah,
moment
almost
on?
blame God. It's almost like we were born yesterday and God gave us this power. It's irrelevant past.
Hmm?
get on
It's
the
almost like we
train
can blame
now.
God. Hashem gave me this problem.
No, that's all. It doesn't matter exactly how it came to pass. That's not what's going to save
And do
you.
we have to really understand exactly what our problem is now and get into the details? And
You have to
see
understand how it
what
affects you now. Yes.
We have to actually name the bad middah.
Okay. What is it? What is it that's troubling me? What's going on? I don't have to. One of the worst things in the world is to, in my opinion, is to relive trauma. I don't think you need to relive trauma in order to fix it. And
But
sometimes
you can
it's-
discuss the trauma.
You have to name it today.
if the
You have
person
to
is very
recognize
aware of
that
it,
something
know.
happened.
can.
You have
But
to
you
relive
mostly,
it.
but you don't have to get into the details. The details are not where it's at. For Freud, it's exactly where it was at. To the point where he invented details.
Well, that exaggerates circumstances.
Okay.
tremendously,
It brings you into a state
Which is terrible.
of even more subservience to what
Yeah.
happened.
More drowning.
Yeah, it sucks.
But once you're in Hamtakai, you will realize that every detail matters.
No, whatever is conscious
I think it
matters.
also
So
lets
that's like you will notice by default.
You might
if
see that
Hamtakai gets
something
deeper and
wrong,
deeper
right.
that wow, every detail.
So you
You
said
might
whatever
say-
is
Connecting the
conscious
dots
matters. So
much.
something that's
Nothing
unconscious never matters?
It's easier to do it
It's not
after
that it
it's
never
traumatic.
matters, but the way to fix it is not by trying to uncover it. It'll uncover when it needs to uncover, it will come out anyway if you're going through the right process. If you're not going through the right process, then you're right, it'll just get stuck there.
But maybe there's an unconscious belief
100%.
that somebody just didn't get at a certain point.
Then suddenly it'll surface because you're pursuing sweetening.
Can you define the problem about exactly what mitzvah you're supposed to be doing that you're not?
I'll give you an example.
Or do you have to actually understand the
I'll give a simple example. We said Shabbos is freedom. It's called Amad Echil. It's like the Shabbos is the seventh day. It's tapping into the future. The future is called Alma Dechilu, world of freedom. What does Shabbos free you from?
Daily
Slavery
grind.
to reality.
Okay. What's in the daily grind? Literally.
Duck in reality.
39 tasks that you have to do in your daily grind. Okay? From making food to fixing clothing to everything that has to do with so what is it telling you? That Shabbos frees you by making you do these things in a holy context. How do I see that? Why? Why do I see that? Where do I see that?
And it's suddenly a mitzvah. Like,
Where is it a mitzvah?
Have
When
to,
we
what do you mean?
were
Shabbos is a
kiddish.
bunch of positive mitzvahs.
you're not
have
just
to do.
having supper to eat supper.
You're keeping it.
Good.
Shabbos is
Suddenly
a concept. You
command-
have
So
to.
you're doing all
You're
these things
following
during the
another
week
kind of.
in order to prepare for Shabbos.
Right. The moment that it becomes Lichvod Shabbat Kodesh,
They're saying on Shabbos.
Yeah.
it's freeing me from it. And then I come to that place where I'm suddenly free from it. I'm elevating the whole context of doing these things. I'm saying,
Or some sort of.
how do I free myself from being ground into the ground by these things? By saying that I'm doing them for Shabbos.
Elevated.
Wow.
But Shabbos itself is the.
That's when you can.
So that's
That's
even-
it. That's when you suddenly feel
So
these
that's even in
things
the week.
are
You're looking on
freedom.
Friday, that as if my Shabbos already happens.
What?
You're making my healing happens on Friday.
A lot of it happens during the week, but when do you fully feel it? When you get to the sweetening. Suddenly you understand that this was all said
You're saying Friday's the Havdalah or whatever. During the week when you work for
Even
Shabbos,
more
it's
than
the
that.
Havdalah.
That's why everyone's always so calm, Erev Shabbos.
You can't reach that state of being free of these things unless you've elevated them. That's the whole idea. That I've taken them to the next level. Instead of doing them just to sustain myself, I do them to kavod Shabbos, for the sake of the Shabbos. That's like taking them, these 39 things, and raising them to the next level. In a certain sense, I don't know if anybody has ever done this, but there's a simple pshat that Chazal say that proved this whole thing that I just said about Mitzrayim. The 613 commandments that we have are the elevation of 613 commandments or slave commandments that we had in Egypt. How do I know? Meaning, the fact that I have 613 commandments now, serving Hashem, means that there were 613 commandments
So
that the
then
Egyptians
that's
gave me.
That's the sweetening that they never completed.
So,
We're finishing it.
maybe. How do I know this? Because the Chazal say that the word Anochi is an Egyptian. They say that when Hashem revealed Himself to us, the first word He said was in Egyptian. It's an Egyptian word, it's not in Hebrew.
Really?
What does it mean?
In Hebrew you say Ani.
Oh, okay.
Anochi becomes, in our Hebrew, because of the Torah, it becomes what we call the supernal I. But understand, this supernal I, this higher I, where did it come from? Egypt.
What's
It's
the
an
word?
Egyptian word. Okay. So it's like Hashem said, that thing that until now you've been serving, now I'm going to take it and you'll serve me. But how do I know it's 613? Because that's the number of letters in the Aseret HaDibrot. 620, 613 plus 7 commandments from the sages.
The Shabbos example is not sitting so well with me because if someone's, I don't know, stranded somewhere and they don't do a thing for Shabbos, they still keep Shabbos and they still, but they don't get the healing because they didn't prep for it.
If somebody's stranded, he doesn't know what time it is.
Well, let's say he knows.
That's
he
what
has
you're doing.
nothing to prepare, or he has no food, whatever. Someone has no way to prepare for Shabbos.
He's gonna do something.
I don't know, or he's in a state, he's imprisoned and he can't do anything for Shabbos.
So
So then he doesn't, because he couldn't
So
do
you,
39 allotments for Shabbos.
Hashem is taking you away from Avdalah, and you're stuck in Achna. Whatever the reason
He doesn't get
is.
Hamtakah that Shabbos. He doesn't get...
It's not at the level that you could if you had Avdalah, if you were really sitting in Eretz Yisrael, or I don't know, maybe even in America.
Not
prepare.
everyone works so hard for Shabbos, though. Like some people just keep it.
So,
So they're not having Shabbos really.
What?
So we should
It's
work
not-
out.
Oh, the opposite.
And that's like
You
saying,
maybe more.
not everybody in the world is suffering like me. So I guess their sweeting is not as great. No, I don't know. Every person has his pekala. He has his battle that he's fighting, whatever it is. And the sweeting is sweeting. I can't. I don't know what somebody else
It's
is.
a collective sweetening anyway. Someone else.
Oh, no.
So anyway,
It's interesting when a woman has an epidural and goes through the labor process. When the baby comes out,
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I've discussed this with many women. It's not as sweet
can't get them.
when they receive the baby in their arms. It's not as sweet because you didn't go through that marathon and then reach the finish
What are you
line.
saying?
There's no
natural-
feeling. Natural birth without an epidural
Oh,
is a different
Experience.
finish line finish when that baby comes into your arms. That feeling is a different. It's in a different escalation of your emotion. It's just different because you don't pass that.
Okay.
Do you agree?
No.
I
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a very sensitive statement.
said it. It could be that some
Because you
for some
get the
people it
baby
works.
in your
Have you
arm,
had both
you know,
times?
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
and,
I did.
And for I've had also.
And I start giggling when that epidural comes in.
No,
but do you
you've
feel-
had birth with
Yes,
no
yes.
epidural.
Do you feel at the end?
She's
Yes,
happier.
the
There's
next-
hell before, there's hell.
When do you feel I want another one?
I love giving birth.
When do you feel I want another one?
Baby?
Yeah.
Never.
So what I've heard
9.
a few times
Yeah, I know.
is that moment that you're describing is the moment that you say, but right away I want another one.
And if you didn't have the pain, you didn't say it.
And if you don't have the pain, you don't say it.
There's plenty of pain
And
involved.
she's saying,
And I think there's
No,
no
maybe
pain.
it's just
have you
don't
ever
have
had a
pain.
baby with
Anyway,
no
said it.
epidural?
I don't know.
She said yes for 9
No, but have
months.
you had a
It's
baby
between
with
the two of you to
yes,
figure
yes,
this out.
Yes, and it was not a different feeling when the
He
baby
was
came
a
out.
sick baby, and one time the epidural didn't work. No, I always feel highly, highly victorious.
No, I understood. That I understand.
So
But
personal.
it's just, it's different. It's a different. After, I don't know,
I think
2,000
that,
births.
excuse me, but I think that's very egotistical.
Said it. Now we're gonna
Very
stop
much
and
the
we're
animal
gonna.
soul. Like, I need to suffer more physically to feel sweet that this baby's in my arm. What if you felt it was all from Hashem? How sweet
No,
is that?
when you actually cry to Hashem and you say, Hashem, give me the
She
strength to go
cries
through this
girl
birth.
too, I think.
And you actually connect. I'm not speaking about myself, I'm speaking about just experience watching many, many births. Okay, I've been to maybe 2,000.
I think it's unnecessary, that's all. That's another
But
factor.
there's something very, very special that I've spoken to many women, and mostly religious women, that when they come to the point that they actually ask Hashem, and they nullify themselves, and they just become a vessel, to have that baby come through them. And it's not, they actually get out of the way to get out of the way, it really is, to get out of the way of Hashem's work.
It's not fun with an epidural either. Like,
But there's
process through
something
my
there
life.
when you actually ask Hashem for help to go through that process.
You're only relying.
You're only relying on Hashem. There's something so great at that point.
I don't know, I rely fully on Hashem with my epidural.
You're saying the practical, no, you're saying the practical now application.
me-
Of course, each one's gonna have to see how they can deal with it.
Okay, let's. We won't be able to finish today. What time is it?
Here and it doesn't mean you can tell someone, oh, you're crazy, why don't you do this?
10 more minutes, just so that we set up the next stage. Okay, 10 more minutes. The place that this is strongest is in a nevuah from Yeshaya in chapter 60. And it's a haftarah that we read this chapter in the 6th haftarah of the Shiva de Nechamata, the 7 weeks of consolation after Tisha B'Av. It's the 6th haftarah that we read. And it's called Kumi Ori. It's Kumi Ori Kiva Urech Uchvod Hashem Alayich Zarach. And then, in the middle of this haftarah, there's the following verse. It says, "Tachat hanechoshet avi zahav, v'tachat habarzel avi kesef, v'tachat ha'etzim nechoshet, v'tachat ha'avanim barzel." Okay, so the word that he uses is tachat. which we would translate in place of.
Tachat is
In place of.
It's
In
not
place
under.
of.
It's not under or
Okay, literally, when people hear the word tachat, they understand that it's talking about underneath. Zeh tachat zeh. But when you say in the Torah, what is the meaning of ayin tachat ayin? It's not an eye under an eye. It's an eye for an eye. That's how it's translated. Tachat in Tanakh doesn't mean under. It's not mitachat hashamayim. There's also mitachat. Tachat means instead of, in place of. Okay? So, by the kings in Sefer Melachim, it always says Vayimloch tachat aviv. He ruled not under his father, but in place of his father. By the way, in Yom Kippur there has to be a Kohen that's tachat the Kohen Gadol. What does it mean? That he's ready to assume his responsibilities should something happen to him. Should something happen to the high priest, he's also. That's what the word tachat means, instead of. So even though it sounds like tachat nechoshet avizav, instead of copper, I will bring gold. So it sounds tachat, maybe it's under. No, it's in place of. What is this prophecy saying? It's a consolation prophecy. It's telling us that know that Hashem is saying everything that I destroyed when I destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. So what was before made out of copper, I will now bring made out of gold. What is he teaching us? He's telling us that if you want to heal the past that was negative, you do it not just by bringing the same, you have to bring something higher. So in place of copper I will bring gold, in place of the iron I will bring silver, in place of the wood I will bring copper, and in place of the stones I will bring iron. This is, by the way, the source from which we know that the third Beis Hamikdash will be built out of iron, out of metal. So,
And it wasn't allowed in the other.
Is the gold
Right.
upgraded
it's
too?
not allowed.
It wasn't allowed in the other business.
In the previous Beis Hamikdash it was made out of wood and stone, and the wood had to be entirely covered by stone.